So we're talking critical infrastructure for DAOs.
We are.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I think one of the most critical infrastructure for DAOs is actually an in-person meeting space. And nobody does it better than you, man. Do you want to talk about like EthDenver and how it brings support to DAOs?
Sure. So to give a little bit of background, I don't think I've actually ever told this story like in like the meta world. So if you don't know, Denver back in early 2017 had the third largest Ethereum meetup in the country. And it went from like literally nobody. We had like 10 people in a shitty bar. And like it went from that to like 400 people with a wait list just to get into a meetup. And we're like, holy shit. Like there actually might be something to this. I mean, there was a lot of like Moonboy, like FOMO, ICO stuff going on. But still, there was a lot of really interesting, smart people that it just felt like the meetup was insufficient there's too much backslaps and beer and pizza and not enough like actual like unpacking of ideas and creating a space for creativity. So I got with the organizers of the meetup and I said, look, we should do a hackathon. And they're like, yeah, we already did that once, and like 20 people showed up. I was like, no. I'm talking about like, let's take advantage of Colorado's social political vibe and bring the world to kind of build this new future. And they're like, who's gonna come? I'm like, I don't know, like a lot of people will probably come. So we were hoping to get 401 people, mostly because we wanted to beat ETH Waterloo, who had 400. At least that was the number they said. We're like, we want to be the biggest. So we ended up with 1,500. So the first year, I think, was like 36 countries. And then this year, we had 104 countries represented by 31,000 people online. So this next year, we're expecting 5,000 plus in person here in Denver, plus probably another 50,000 online. So it's turned into something quite remarkable, actually. We've even got the state government involved. We've got the governor's office. We've got the Wyoming governor's office. We've got all sorts of people that want to be cool kids at the school. So, but the best part about it, we call it a big tent and a blank canvas. So if you've been to EthDenver, you know we don't charge. It's free to come. We'll pay for your food. We give away something like $50,000 to $75,000 in travel scholarships. We try to remove every economic barrier that you can think of. We rent out a whole hostel and just give away rooms so people can come. And all of that just to give people a direct line to their own creativity of expression so that they can actually put it out there. So 2020, we actually called the year of the DAO at EthDenver. And I don't know if anybody else just chalks 2020 up to like Mulligan, because it was like, it kind of didn't exist. I just like did some stuff in my basement for like 8 months. I like literally built a co-working space in my basement because like we didn't have anywhere else to go. And so now I think 2021 is actually the year of the DAO. I think this is really the advent. So like, I mean, I remember talking to Amin about, hey, come and present Moloch in 2020. Like, let's actually make this the year of the DAO. We built a DAO app to like vote on all the projects that came out of the event. So
I mean, I remember in 2019, Amin actually brought up the idea of Moloch and recruited most of the people.
I guess it was 2019.
Yeah, most of the people that he recruited were, at least that he recruited me at EthDenver to join Moloch.
Yeah, I mean,
But this is what I'm talking about, is that this is critical infrastructure for DAOs, is like to have people actually meet in person. You know, we always think of DAOs as purely online and, you know, you never have to talk to each other, but that's it's so impersonal and not real. And DAOs need to be more of a family. They need to have this like community vibe. And it's hard to have a community online. And EthDenver and events like this really become a Schelling point for people to meet. And I feel like that needs to be taken advantage of as much as possible.
Connection points. I mean, I think the metaverse is just going to continue to grow, but I think it just amplifies the need for quality in-person connection as well. So like, I totally agree with you. And if this is like one of your first events in the Ethereum ecosystem, I mean, there's a lot of faces that I know from like many events, but like come to these things. I mean, there's no better way to organically connect with your vibe, with your tribe and your community than to be at these events. There's nothing more organic than this sort of thing. So like, you can't get the same feeling in Discord. Sorry, but you can't. And just the amount of like rapid fire interactions that you can get here if you're actually intentional about it. Like, not just sitting on the picnic tables with your face buried in your laptop, you know, doing code, but like actually connecting with people, unpacking ideas. There's no more valuable surface area in the space than these kinds of events.
Yeah. I think in general, we really underestimate the requirements of, around culture within DAOs and the tooling that can create culture and positive cultures, like positive sum games within relationships. Another piece of critical infrastructure that we're trying to push out is this idea of conflict resolution and having the ability to actually resolve conflicts within your community. There's an amazing Nobel Prize-winning economist, her name's Elinor Ostrom, who she won a Nobel Prize for basically disproving the tragedy of the commons. And she has these great 8 principles, and there's lots of documentation on them, but seriously, like, I just want everybody in a DAO to read these 8 sentences, you know? And it's super simple, so look it up. But one of them is conflict resolution. I'm sure you've seen it in DAOs, where like small little conflicts will just kind of slowly grow and be unaddressed, and then they fester, and then eventually it goes straight to ostracism. One person just has to leave the community because they never resolved these small conflicts that slowly added up. So there's this group called Gravity that's coming out of the Token Engineering Commons, who's actually focused on bringing that as a public good within the space so that we can train people to be good at resolving conflicts. It's called Gravity because, and we have this graviton training where we train people to be like a force of nature within their community to bring people together. So that training actually starts on the 20th-ish of September. I'm sorry, I don't know the actual date, but you can check out the TE Commons Twitter. And if you know anybody who would really be interested in being a force of nature in their community to strengthen the relational fabric of their community, and just be there to, you know, address small things. You know, someone's getting someone else's name wrong. You know, it doesn't have to be like a major conflict all the time, but having people whose responsibility it is within the DAO to be like looking out for like awkwardness within relationships is critical infrastructure, I would argue.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen half a dozen different approaches to conflict resolution, so I think the jury's out on exactly what's going to stick. But yeah, I think sustainability is really the key question, right? So how do you create sustainability of values inside of an organization like a DAO or a digital community? It's not that easy because you don't have a hierarchical top-down structure. You don't have some sort of centralized, or at least you shouldn't, you know, have some sort of centralized dictates about, I mean, obviously you can have a constitution or some sort of manifesto. Those are all fine.
Mission, vision, values.
Yeah, but then alignment of those things, you know, I mean, corporate infrastructures are hard enough to manage. I mean, how many people have ever worked for a company that say one thing and do something else? I mean, everybody. So DAOs have the same potential trap, you know, maintaining alignment and sustainability of values is, in my opinion, probably one of the most important things of DAO culture because, well, they're also more fluid. I mean, when one of the conflict resolutions is rage quitting, right? I mean, that is a feature, not a bug, in my opinion. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, look, if the values of this community no longer align with who I am and what's important to me, then I can leave. I can choose that, right?
Yeah, and it's really nice incentive alignment. It creates this nice accountability between the collective and the individual.
Exactly.
Right? So the individual can quit, but the collective doesn't want the individual to quit. So individual minority opinions, because of rage quit mechanisms or having even just a market in place for the DAO token, it actually holds the collective accountable to the individual. And it's these incentive alignments that really need to be looked at within DAO infrastructure. You know, I love Metacartel, Moloch, and these, I generally call them charity DAOs, But actually, I feel like they're, in some ways, it's cool to bootstrap some things with that, but I feel like the real power of DAOs is the ability to control an economy and actually have a sustainable situation where you can actually issue currency to produce value, right? And the actual value of that currency is based on the value that you're coordinating. So if you can coordinate value creation effectively, then people will want to participate in the system. And of course, the token engineering infrastructure needs to be designed with some forethought. And having access to token engineering tools is another piece of critical infrastructure.
Critical infrastructure, token engineering. You know, it's interesting. So if anybody's going to Wyoming next week, we're producing DAO Day on Friday, and we're doing that to help out the Wyoming folks because they wanted to do a DeFi day, and I'm like, why would you want to do a DeFi day? What? No, you passed a DAO legislation, at least do something like that. So we're helping them do that, trying to upgrade their cool factor slightly. Thank you, Ann.
I'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be there. And it's interesting because their law didn't touch tokens. All they did was create a new organizational framework that you could be a DAO. And there's a couple of things that are good and some other things that are not so good about the overall law. And it's I don't think they really understand it. So what a DAO is and what, how we're building microeconomies and issuing monetary policy and, creating sustainable economic value distribution mechanisms and all of these different things. They literally have no idea that this is what we're really doing. And I'm saying this on live stream, so hopefully they're watching and they'll pay attention. But yeah, let's put it this way. Has anybody actually ever studied deeply Keynesian economics and how monetary policy is issued in the US and how screwed up that shit is? Think about when you're creating a DAO and a token, you're literally replacing the monetary policy of the United States in your little micro world. That's how serious what you're building is. It will blow your freaking mind when you spend time thinking about that. Because we're literally decentralizing the issuance of currency in microeconomies where we get to determine the value of these communities on our own terms. This has literally never been done in a modern society. I mean, feudal societies and all sorts of stuff. I mean, we could get into the history, but where this is going is insane. So having good and sound, almost first principles of token engineering and monetary policy issuance and governance around this, I mean, this is really complicated stuff. This is PhD level stuff, in my opinion. And some of it's well above my pay grade, and I've spent a dozen years studying this stuff. So it's insane. And it's a lot of fun, but the gravity of what we're doing and the responsibility that we have to do this stuff smartly and thoughtfully is a whole nother bar that I don't think that we think about probably enough when we're just kind of doing this. But
totally. I mean, when you think about, I want to riff on that. When you think about how governments actually fund public goods, because governments are the #1 funder of public goods. They're the only ones really doing it sustainably. Non-profits are the other option, right? So generally what governments do is they actually use issuance to fund public goods. There's this idea that taxes are paying for roads and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, maybe sometimes, occasionally, but really most of the money that governments use is just printed, right? $21 trillion in debt or whatever it is now. They didn't use taxes for that money, right? They issued that money. Yeah, right? So they use issuance to fund public goods, and it's a model that works. I mean, we actually enjoy a lot of public goods for the fucked up nature of governments and all that. Well, we're doing pretty well. So we can actually change that structure, though. There's this the governments have this monopoly on every public goods vertical, but here we're actually going instead of top down, we're going from a bottom up.
It's emergent.
Yeah, we have these emergent economies that actually are bottom up. People who are on the ground and have the incentive to get things right can actually start coordinating value production through issuance and actually fund these public goods, fund these systems. But it's complicated, Economics is not simple, and honestly, we're in a golden age where up until this point, every economy that's ever been designed has been designed by a couple people in a back room, right? Like, who voted to raise the interest rates, right? The Federal Reserve just does it, right? Who voted on 32 Ether, right? Like, you know, these are actually, we have these systems that are designed by a few people in back rooms. We actually haven't really evolved into a bottom-up economic design. And we kind of have this idea that, like, well, the people are too stupid to like design economies, right? That's what the monarchy used to say.
It's the paternalism, the arrogance of paternalism, yeah.
Yeah, I think people are smart, especially people in DAOs. So we can actually
especially.
Yeah. So because they're open-minded, they're willing to, like, you know, escape the normalcy. And I just want to invite people in the Token Engineering Commons. We're going to do this, what we're calling collaborative economics, which is a very much an educational opportunity to design a bonding curve, conviction voting application, a DAO. It's called DAO voting, like TAO voting, and actually a vesting and all of this stuff from the bottom up, where anybody can actually design the system. There's this really beautiful dashboard that you get to play with, right? And then what's funny is we have political debates, right? So people will propose the economy, because guess what? When you're collaborating over shared resources, politics gets involved. And not the politics like the evil politics that you think, just like, you know, like the Greek word, you know, like politics.
So I'm going to take it one step further. If we're talking about DAOs, if you're interested in DAOs, like really, come to Token Engineering Commons, find somewhere to really get into economics. Nobody majors in econ, and the econ we get taught in college isn't the econ that you need to learn. So get involved in this stuff, because in order to really understand the dynamics of how humans relate in DAOs, how economic policy affects outcomes, how sustainability is impacted by different decisions that might be engineered into the construct of a DAO or some sort of issuance of a token, the only way to like really contribute meaningfully is to actually take the time to learn it. The only way to learn it is to actually get involved in communities that can actually give you the knowledge. I honestly wouldn't even know where else to put you. If you wanted to really know about DAOs and learn about economic game theory design, like, where would I send you? Like, YouTube? You can't learn this stuff on YouTube. It's just not there. So the TEC is a great place that gives you kind of a choose your own adventure. In fact, I have she just left, but I have an exchange gal that was an au pair in my home, and she joined the TEC because she, in college, like studied a little bit of economics, but had no idea about any of this, and now she's like attending the calls and like learning on. She's going back to Brazil, so like she's literally going to be building DAOs from, you know, halfway south of us, and it's really cool because there's literally no barriers to learning this, and it's very fluid and hands-on, and I can't think of a better place to like get involved in learning about DAOs. So like,
yeah. We raised $1.5 million, and you can design the economy it goes into.
Dope.
If you want. So I'm going to go back to critical infrastructure and tell a little story about the DAO. So because I was part of the Slockit team that created the DAO. And
the DAO.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
But, you know, anyway, before we launched, the last piece that actually delayed the launch was figuring out how the hell do we get money from this, like, weird smart contract thing into a German company's bank account. And that was the last piece before we launched the DAO. There should have been other pieces. The smart contract audits didn't exist. Solidity was 8 months old. Give us a break, you know? But I happen to be on stage with someone who's like saving the day on this, because it's been a pain in my ass for 5 years trying to do the full DAO, like paying people in crypto. And the default answer is like, okay, so like, hey, thanks for the DAI or thanks for the ETH, but what do I do? How do I pay taxes? How do I
just
do
call
any
your
of this?
landlord and ask him if they'll take DAI.
Yeah, it's like,
hey, bro, you want DAI or is wrapped DAI good?
yeah.
I got some WETH. Is that cool?
with the DAO, we created this Swiss entity called DAO Link that would take money from the DAO, and then the DAO Link, the Swiss entity, had a tax ID, and then it would be a middleman for every transaction, right? And that was the solution in 2016. And it might have worked, who knows? But now we have something way better, which is Opolis, which I think is super cool, and I basically direct anybody in the States to this because it's just a ready-made solution. I don't know if you want to talk about it a little bit.
Well, I don't mind shilling.
Please.
So for anybody that doesn't know my background, I spent 20 years in HR tech and employment systems. So in a previous life, I was sort of a, modern-day slaveholder, you could say. I built a big staffing company, and I extracted value from people who worked hard hourly, and I made a bunch of money, and I had an existential moral crisis, you could say, several years ago, and I decided basically that I was going to democratize employment, so I walked away from pretty much everything that I had built, sold my company, parlayed it into the future of work, as we call it, which is Opolis. So Opolis operates as the bridge between Web 2 and Web 3. What it really does is it creates legitimacy for those working ethereally. So if you're trying to replicate your employment experience with the safety and security accoutrement of healthcare and retirement plans and my W-2 so I can refinance my house and all these things, Opolis basically provides you all of that without having to give up your independence. So you don't have to be subjugated to a corporation. You don't have to, get permission from some other third-party entity. The community, it's an employment DAO with a legal wrapper, so we use a limited cooperative association out of Colorado to actually use the EIN number of that entity on behalf of the community to employ each individual through that entity, provide them all the services. There's a bunch of legal mumbo-jumbo stuff that we use as far as like the co-employment outsourcing and whatnot. But essentially, most of our early adopters are DAO members. People that are floating around ethereally, they got half a dozen revenue streams, they're getting paid in crypto. They have no idea how to get this stuff to their bank account, so we've created all the plumbing for that. So they can remit their payroll invoice to us in crypto, we convert it, there's no additional fees, and we do a direct deposit just like your paycheck would be normally into your bank, and it feels like a normal thing. So if any of y'all have spouses that don't understand any of this crypto stuff, and they're freaking out because you don't have group health care plans or whatever, we have access to all of that. Paychecks in your bank account just like normal. If you want crypto, you can do that too. We help with all the tracking, basis statements, everything that you need so that you can just focus on what it is that you do. And so legitimizing people that work in the space is one thing, but if you think about it, there's only one activity that everybody does commercially, and that's employment, it's payroll. We're building the giant bridge to the future. So as the trend of labor is already moving back to the independent worker, it's estimated just in the US by 2028 that 90 million US workers will be classified as independent. What are they going to do? All this stuff that's traditionally orbiting around a corporate employment subjugation, like healthcare in the US, how are you going to get it? What are you going to do for your retirement plans? You're going to cobble all this together on your own? No, you're not. Like, all of this is moving back to like the independent workers. So we're just poised to basically bring the next million people to crypto, to DAOs, so that you don't have to like hold your nose and jump in the lake with cement shoes on. You can actually have the infrastructure that you need to have a soft landing, and you can just come right into the community. It's easy to do. So
yeah, I mean, I'm basically a bum who lives in a van down by the river. Like I don't need Opolis.
I had some Chris Farley thoughts there just now.
Absolutely, but like I've been able to just kind of live fine off crypto, but that's not normal. And I have people that work with me who they want to buy a house, they need to get a mortgage, they need income they can show a bank.
They need a W-2. They need a pay stub.
And it was so nice. Actually, 0x Joshua, I don't know if he's around. Like, my friend just went to Josh, and he held her hand all the way through, and they opened up a LLC in Wyoming to like be their own personal thing, and it was all so simple and easy. And we were worried we were going to start like a Swiss entity or something. We were going to try to figure out how to do it on our own, and it was such a waste of our time. And it was so nice to just be like, oh, thank you, Opolis.
Yeah, and
I really
so
appreciate that.
The vision of Opolis, though, is more than just a US-based employment mechanism. Just so everybody knows, the goal is to build the global public utility infrastructure for employment. So anybody can plug in from anywhere in the world, connect with any DAO, any revenue stream that you want, pay in whatever damn currency you want, and have that normalcy and fluidity to work from where, with whom, and how much the fuck you choose. The whole subjugation of employment, if you think about it, employers are the ultimate intermediaries. They're the ultimate third-party intermediaries, the ultimate extractors of value. Not that they won't have a place. Service consumers will always exist. It's just the dynamics. We're moving to a reciprocity-based employment relationship dynamic versus a subjugated one. And so we're building the infrastructure to do that. We're going to scale it globally. So not just US people, like right now US people have access to it. We're very soon going to be in Canada and Puerto Rico, then we're going to Europe, and then we'll be just doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So yes, you don't want to tell you. So when they asked me to do the critical infrastructure stuff, of course, I'm like, yes, I love talking about this because I don't see a future for DAOs unless we give people the keys to their commercial experience. Unless they have the ability to choose their own adventure and handle all the regulatory stuff, all the compliance stuff, all the tax stuff, and all the necessary evil crap that we all have to deal with, unless we're providing that, it's never going to happen.
So I'm gonna change the subject. I have two more critical pieces of infrastructure because Yaler just gave me a big smile. I'm looking into his eyes and I'm just like, you are critical infrastructure.
Yaler is critical infrastructure.
Yeah. And I see Scott. I saw Scott around here. There's cat herding. Cat herding is critical infrastructure in DAOs. You know, and it's not, you know, you have these public chat rooms and you just say, hey, everybody vote. Tragedy of the commons. Just right there. No one's going to vote. They're like, oh, yeah, someone else will vote.
The minute you ask, they're just not going to vote.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's bad enough the cat herders will actually like hang out and be like, hey, did you vote on this? And like, yeah, I will. Okay. You know? But seriously, having these one-on-one, like someone who's going to carry the flag for important initiatives to make sure that they follow through is really critical infrastructure and built in. There's so much assumptions that people will just do things, you know, but actually you need someone to be a champion of almost every piece that you do. So organizing that kind of work is really critical, and there's people like Yaler in the space that do it really well, and I think every DAO kind of needs someone, yeah.
Yeah, community builders are critical for DAOs. If you don't have somebody evangelizing your community on an active basis, like I'll give another shout out to Joshua Lapidus. 0x Joshua, where's he at? He's somewhere around. He's back in the back. So Joshua, I'm fortunate enough to be able to work with him on a daily basis. We work like on 3 different projects together, but Opolis is our core focus. One of the best community builders in the space. So like, you have to have it. If you don't have it, find one, build one, bring one into the space, whatever you got to do. But having quality community folks for your DAO, you won't go far without it.
Yeah. Since we're running out of time, I just want to speed through another one. It's reward systems. Reward systems are critical infrastructure, and it's very difficult to get right. There's lots of really cool tools out there. Coordinate is really awesome. SourceCred, of course, has a good flow. There's the praise system. And then, you know, there's also just basic salaries, you know, paying hourly wages, these sorts of things. You know, I know it's like not as cool as Coordinate, but in the end, that's what gets stuff done. And like organizing these sorts of payment structures and actually planning them out and getting them approved and building the systems around, making it easy so someone can come in and have a DAO journey, right? Where they're just a passive contributor, then all of a sudden they earn some DAO tokens by doing something. And maybe they didn't even know it was gonna happen. You know, I love what Metagame has done is a really nice little onboarding system, and they make it fun, make it like you're a player, you know? And then you get some tokens, and they're like, oh, you got those tokens? Don't sell them. become a patron, you know, plant your seeds in the balancer pool, and having these.
Stake 'em.
Yeah, stake it. It's fun stuff, but it's really critical to have this incentive alignment to actually reward the people who are doing good work and make it easy, you know?
Well, and also make it so that the experience is sustainable for the individual contributor. I think one of the things that we see in DAOs is they're not being compensated enough in tangible, like present day funds to be able to continue. So you've got to align your game design with both the present and the future for sustainable contribution. If you're not doing that, go to the economics channel, go to the TEC, learn a little bit more about economic game design, and build it. Yeah. I think we're done.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks, John.